Fredrik Høyer is a poet, writer, and performer. Inspired by hip-hop already in his childhood, he started to experiment with slam poetry and spoken word poetry. From there on, he moved on to start to do other stuff and longer formats and poetic works. So far in his career, he has been both a traditional writer, a performer doing his own material, and a writer also of plays for other actors. Fredrik Høyer have experience with a wide range of contexts and settings for his performances. Everything from bars and libraries to the main stage of the National Theatre. For us, Fredrik was a perfect choice for this festival. His work is for a big part what I would call language-based. He's very often in a sort of direct dialogue with the audience, and there is clearly what was introduced yesterday as a feedback loop with the audience. And his style is often also including commenting what he's doing or commenting his own metaphors or his own language, sort of. So there is also some kind of meta layer there if you want to. And of course, he's both a performer and a writer. And sometimes it's kind of hard to separate between two of them. So all these qualities, I think, could be described as very present in what we can call polyvocal performative work. Welcome to Fredrik Høyer. As I said, you started to work with slam poetry and this sort of forms in quite early age. Can you say something about what inspired you to do this?
It was like I was starting to get an interest for hip hop and hip hop lyrics in a really early age. I think about 8, 9, 10. I was getting into making music and like sitting in our room with my friends and just experimenting on punk music and hip hop and I really early on I recognized that the most interesting thing for me was to write the text and like ping pong it with my friends and getting this feedback loop enforcing thing, seeing an experience in the listener and getting a response and writing from there. So
was that the element you think that in
Øystein, vi vil at det avbryter den går an å ta vekk den her lysbildeframvisningen som går på
Ja.
Det går an.
Jeg kan bare for det skifter hele tiden.
Og det skifter bilde?
Yeah, just give me a second and I'll sort it out.
For English-speaking audience, somebody got a little bit acidic by these images.
I just have to turn on the screensaver. All right. Never. Okay, now I think
it's too much information. It's too polyvocal.
Yeah. Like 14 or 15, I was getting into rap music, and I had been playing in the school band for many years, you know, and I wasn't really that into music or making music or like making music with instruments at least, and getting to a stage where I could just perform the text in this slam contest at 70 years of age was really like liberating, because then I didn't have to like having a 4-bar scheme to stick to, and I could say whatever I want, and the entire audience was listening to every word, which was really like clearly or more clearly communicated, just in the silence, a cappella. So that was how I started to think that perhaps I could make music or listening experience, which was not like entirely based on music, but language instead.
So you were as well thinking that I'm making music now, as you were making poetry, or you making
No,
performance?
not in that way. Not in that way. But the rhythm and the rhyme schemes are like naturally musically phenomena, you know. So yeah, I think it was like an instinct, but not like self-conscious choice in that way.
So it's more you react on a way of expressing.
Definitely, yeah.
That, rather than making a choice, am I a poet, am I a singer, or whatever.
Yes,
Yeah.
I think so.
To put it a little bit in the context of this festival and the talks we have done now, I think that, you know, many of the terms and the ideas that has been brought up now, like polyvocality and post-dramatic theater and all these things, are somehow things a critical language starting to appear in maybe first and foremost in the 90s to criticize dramatic theater and so on, classical dramatic theater. And you were still growing up in the 90s and doing this thing naturally. So for you, you have another entrance to this, I assume. Could you say something about your relation? What you think when we talk about polyvocality, about post-dramatic theater?
Yes.
Is it interesting for you, or is it like, no, I'm doing it. I don't need to talk about it. Do you understand?
When I read Mr. Castaño's book, I found it really interesting, but I also reflected upon the fact that for a lot of me and my peers and people in my generation, these things come really natural. It's a natural thing that you have like a collage. The entire like reality is a set of dish, a smorgasbord to like pick from, and you can sample everything and steal things, copy things, and make them your own. Because that's like, I really think that kids growing up in the 90s, when internet started to emerge, that had a really profound impact on how we started to perceive ourselves. And it's this kind of what's the English word? You dramatize yourself in a way. And young people today, they don't
become
have
performative.
Yeah, they don't have these clear categories which you had in the 70s and the 80s when you liked that rock group or whatever. That was like a clear social category you were fitted in. Yeah. So today it's really, really, really fragmented and individual, and everyone has to like create their own myth in a sort of a way, their own narrative. Who am I? Not just to themselves, but to the world. Yeah, that's the impact social media has had, not just today, but the last 20 years. So for many kids growing up in this like paradigm, new paradigm, because that's the way I perceive it. It's a really natural thing that you can implement whatever and pick and choose and cherry pick from the entire world in how you display yourself. And that's like an idea, and a deep sort of idea, I think, is starting to creep into art, the art scene as well.
Does this mean that we have some kind of natural, we have access to, or we are conscious about our performative identities in another way after social media and internet somehow?
Yeah, I think
That we
so.
manipulate with it, is that a part of it?
Definitely, yeah. You can choose now who you are, and you can define yourself in a whole another way than you could before.
And what is then the consequences for us as artists, or the art, you think?
I think it's like it has two sides, you know, the good side and the dark side, you can say. The good news is that you have this, like, in a bigger sense of freedom, and it's very liberating to, like, view everything you come across as an input that you modulate yourself and emulate, and the art is like an output phase. So the bad news, or the like dark side here, is that it's no way you can be original, and there's also no way you can like truly improvise, because this paradigm, you might say, has in a way you have to both conscious and unconscious relate to tradition. Many jazz musicians I play with and work with, they don't believe in improvisation at all, because you always have to relate to a tradition, even if you make it up just as you go.
How do you deal with that element in your own, as a performer?
As a performer, yeah,
Is it? I guess I assume a lot of the audience have seen you on stage. Is it how much do you improvise? How much is, like, I mean, since you develop your own text, when you go on stage with this text, how much is like scripted in detail, and how much is like open for something?
I would say around 5 to 10% I improvise and make up. And that's a tool. I view it as a tool to create, like, a sense of nowness, and to get a deeper contact. If you, at least for me as an actor or a performer, you might say, just leaving the script for just a brief moment, it's very easy, I think, for the audience to read. They see it when it's done. So that's a real powerful tool. I have, like, I try to investigate in my work as a performer.
You insisted that we should do this interview completely unscripted as well.
Yeah.
Is that a part of, like, is that the attitude towards reality?
Yes, in a way, but also, like, I find it more organic, and the organic is like is again this liberating sense and this freedom that lies beneath. That if you do it unscripted, okay, everything can happen,
Or nothing.
and afterwards it's like, yeah, it happened. So it's not that kind of fear in sense of being good or bad in quality. And that's a really important thing for me. Also, as one who does workshops with people and talk a lot about writing, that's in one way you can view art and everything that's ever been created in a vertical axis, where you have the greatest masterpiece on top, and everything that's ever been. Oh, I lost my. Oh, everything that's ever been created. Everything that's ever been created, down to the worst piece of art ever been done. Yeah. And that's completely true. You can view anything in that way, good or bad. But that's just half the truth, because you can flip that vertical axis horizontally, and you just have different frequencies and a greater mangfold, you know. Okay, do we have any translators in the audience? Variety. Yeah.
Variety. Let's say variety.
Of voices and people as well. I have this wonderful story. Do I have a problem with my mic or something? It's okay. I have this wonderful story, which I also have stolen from my friend. She was at a musical here in Norway, and she found it really, really bad, you know. It was full of cliches and really, like, in no way compelling to her, yeah? So she sat on the front row and couldn't have had a more worse time. So 2 seats to the left, there sat an older couple in their 70s or something. And they were crying, you know? Because they were having like this real moment of real art experience to the same thing that she found in no way to cry about. And the man said to his wife, "That's just the way it is." And he had like this tear.
And she didn't move her at all.
No. But how can we discriminate that?
Yeah.
How can we? I think it's not only a really important thing to have in mind when you are in a creative process, because if you create things in order to make it good or bad, it's like a prison for the mind.
So the artist should not focus on the effect of the art, but rather what you are communicating.
Yeah, and in other words, expectations about.
Expectations.
Yeah. And to like discriminate between good and bad, always you need that as well, but you need a balance, you know. And that's actually a quite frightening thought, because if you start to discriminate art, you are just this close to discriminating people, and that's like very, very, very close to fascist.
So rather than talking about good and bad, is it more effective to talk about adequate or relevance, or in this context?
Yes.
Or, for instance?
Does it resonate with you?
Mm.
Does this frequency resonate with you? That's the like horizontal line.
So it seems like you argue for a kind of subjective way to think about art and talk about art, or?
Yes. the multiplicity of subjective reality is our only way for an objective reality in my worldview, and that's like a subjective empirical kind of thing, which is quite natural for me as an artist. Yeah.
But does that perspective also influence the? I'm sure it does. But how does this perspective influence the way you're working with art?
It creates this like playfulness where I can work with themes and subjects which really in every way are important to me, but still have this quality of lightness and spaciousness in the approach of writing about these subjects, and that's for me really important, because that like eludes the sense of expectation.
It seems like almost some of your some of the things you do when, as a performer, comes just out of pleasure of saying these words, or trying to understand what they mean now, or like you have one love poem where you talk the inner monologue about what you're thinking about the partner, which is sitting right in front of you, or a date, right? It's like, and it's almost like it's almost like surplus of language to try to frame what is going on, but having this feeling that it's not always possible.
I'm really interested in Norwegian culture, because culture is for me a collective part of myself. To investigate myself, I have to investigate the culture, and the greatest like link between myself and the like bigger hive mind of Norwegian culture is the language, and in that way, language is a way of perceiving reality, which is in every way defining. Yeah, so. I am really interested in how the Norwegian language relates to other languages, and what kind of performative things you can find in how we talk to each other in everyday lives. So when I started to write the Greenland Sutra, which was my first collection of poetry, I was really into the performativity and speech act theory, how language can also be an act just by saying it, you know. So that was like relatable for me in a way of a climate change debate, which where the relationship between what you say and what you do are really imbalanced. You can say not only for politicians but for everyday people as well. So I wanted to write about that and investigate how we talk to each other. We do things, not only say things, but we do as well by saying it. So that was like an approach where I could use the investigation of language to enhance the performance in a way.
Could you show us something, an example of that? I mean, this is an English festival, but you can do something in Norwegian also for our foreign guests to get to know our wonderful language.
Yes, perhaps now we can talk about this weird picture in the background, because I have to say before I do this.
You talk about this now, But I was wondering if you could do some parts of the Norwegian, like Grønlands tundra or something.
Yeah, okay. No
Yeah?
problem.
First we do
Okay,
that.
so then
Is that okay?
yeah. No,
I didn't
yeah.
prepare him on that. I mean, you wanted improvisation. So, just some piece which you're thinking, okay, the performative aspect, the talking, using the Norwegian language,
Yeah,
whatever.
I understand, yeah. Noen ganger når jeg sitter og prater med folk sånn som dette her, så inni meg liksom, så er jeg ganske nervøs. Og da ser jeg liksom alltid, altså. For det er alltid ett ansikt der ute i huehavet som jeg noen ganger bare, og no offense til deg eller noen av dere her nå, tenker på som en sånn fiskestim av fisk, da, liksom masse huer som stirrer på meg og plopper opp fra overflaten. Dere hadde nok skjønt akkurat hva jeg mener hvis dere kommer hit ned i stolen her og jeg sitter og ser fra mitt perspektiv. At det alltid er en, da, i hvert fall en, liksom surskill eller sei, som sitter her og har armer i kors og liksom bare sånn, dette er ikke noe for meg. Og det er ikke det at det liksom er feil det heller, men det er bare et godt eksempel på, da kan du si at sånne tanker på en måte, det vil ikke jeg ha. Sånn vil ikke jeg prate til folk. For eksempel da jeg var 17 år, vet du, så jobbet jeg som telefonselger, og kan derfor hevde at jeg har hørt noe av det mørkeste fra kjelleren av den norske folkesjela noen kvelder. Ja, bare hør, sånn seriøst, altså, jeg ga bort gratis krystallglass, liksom. Kostet ikke noe heller. Og folk har jeg ringt til bare om, fy faen, din jævla jævel, du er ikke lite frekk. For det er på en måte greia da, når man er telefonselger og liksom tåler dritt. Noen ganger så fikk jeg lyst til å bare slå tilbake med samme mynt, og si sånn, hør her, din jævla kødd. Sitter her med calling center, liksom, prøver bare å gjøre en jobb. Men sånn vil jo ikke jeg prate til folk. Så det er bare jævla fotballaget jeg spiller på. Altså, det er herlig gutter å spille ball med, men fytte helvete når ting går imot. Kanskje vi ligger under litt grann, da. Så bare rakner det for alle. Samtidig begynner å spy galle, og han verste alle, hvis vi holder på å ta på, og han samtidig ikke får det til. Altså, det er som han maner fram et svart høl i pupillen, klar til å sluke alt og alle som klager på han, da, hvis han bommer på en sjanse eller slår en feilpassning. Alt det svarte og skammen i hele Drammen og omegn bare suges mot det ene punktet i hans såre sted. Og det er litt av greia også. Hva skal jeg gjøre med det? Greie å dra i gang god lagånd etter bevissthetsfelt av satankors. Når hver og en av spillerne bare graver seg lenger og lenger ned som en jævla Diablo-boss for liksom, jeg vet ikke, jeg får i gang alle oss da, spiller litt sånn optimisme og bra stemning, positivitet. Ja, det blir til at jeg svarer sånn, kan ikke du for faen i helvete ta og skjerpe da? Men det er vel av negative innstillinger inne. Da har vi spilt hele kampen, mens vi like gjerne kan ha kar på midten som bare sitter på do, for du driter deg ut i snart en omgang nå, og tar løp litt i hvert fall. Da har jobb hvis du orker å begynne å grine fersparken, de jævla trebeiner inne, så kan du også orke. Men altså, sånn vil jo ikke jeg prate til folk. Fordi alt man sier man jo egentlig til seg selv. Og det går ikke an å være til uten at noen skal liksom komme inn og fortelle deg hvordan du skal være, at noen skal liksom påstå at sånn er det. Bare vær deg selv, sier alle. Og alle bare, ja, men det er det jeg er. Men du er ikke det, vet du. Svarer alle liksom tilbake til alle. Du har ikke sagt en setning du ikke har blitt fortalt. Hele din streben etter å være et individ er et feilslått fellesprosjekt og skikkelig originalt. Altså det jeg prøver å si her da, at utsikten til genuin menneskelig kontakt og kjærlighet og empati og sånn er mørkere enn en Thor Ulven-ordsky i en manglende horisont. Og det synes jeg egentlig er ganske godt sagt, men sånn vil ikke jeg prate til folk.
Thank you. I kind of think that this speaks for itself. You include more or less everything, I think, what we talked about now. Both the meta layer, but how much is, for instance, of this was now improvised? Is that a text, something that you've done many times before? Or is the entrance a little improvised? Or?
The spoken word genre is interesting in the way that it's a different contract between the performer and the audience than in theater. And the contract is that every word the person is saying is from her or him. So that's like that creates this like reality thing, which is like the strength of the genre. And for me, I'm not a good actor. I never been to drama or acting school, you know. So I had to figure out some tips and tricks for myself, and harvesting from my own emotions in writing my own text was that like an easy way to display real emotions. Because I think that every actor has to find a source of realness within herself to do a good performance. I can't like imagining how you can write something or act something out outside of yourself. You are a product inevitably of your own X years on Earth, times X days you've lived, and there's nothing outside of that. You're the sum of your human experience.
From what perspective do you talk when you say you're not a good actor?
In this like
I understand you're humble as
yeah,
a human. That's but why do you say that? Why would you say that after what you just did?
because you know I have to be humble to you have marvelous actors who can gestalt everything and promote you know okay, I have to say this in Norwegian first. Is that allowed?
Yeah.
And I
Yeah,
can
of course,
translate it
of
later.
course.
Du har så mange skuespillere som kan gestalte nær på hva som helst og skape et dypt øyeblikk i et gitt øyeblikk. Og ikke bare er jeg ikke i nærheten, men jeg kunne heller aldri vært i nærheten. Det må jeg ta inn over meg.
So in some way you say that you think of an actor as somebody that has a wide range of expressions.
Yes.
Okay. So being a bad actor is just having one expression.
Yes, and not like managing to get into that depth where you in some way use yourself.
The emotions and
Yes.
so on. So I'm sure you can continue to debate this with Januka. He's already eager. I can assure you. Another thing I think we should just also talk a little bit about, because we talked about like how when I was 12, I got a computer, and when you were 12, you probably were on internet. So it's a kind of different experience here of like, you know, what kind of input you get in your childhood and upbringing and so on. And I'm also thinking about technologies, like in a wide range of there's a lot there's a lot of technologies that are accessible today. So how does that influence your way of thinking and dealing with performance and art?
My tool shed is really wide and big, and the arenas in which I can work are also like I'm free to move from the theater to the public art scene to slamming in bars, because it's all like the same process for me. Even being here in a debate and engaging in a conversation is a part of that. The input phase and the output phase are the same in a way.
You already using naturally computer language when you talk about these things?
When I was 10, I started to program games in a really novice interface, but and I started at 11, I think, to develop my own web page. So these things are like, when I look at my 65-year-old mother, she's afraid of like ruining things and like when she touches something digital, she's like, she's afraid to destroy more than she's like seeing an opportunity to create something.
So it's not like it's maybe for you not so clear separation between you and the technology. It's more like a seamless thing.
Definitely, yeah.
It's not like, oh, now I'm using technology. It's an, you know.
At least I hope not. For afterwards, I'm going to.
I try to bring the focus over there.
Mm, mm, mm.
Because, yeah, say something about what you're doing with text and computering and so on.
In the last year and a half, I've been working with a really interesting computer programmer whose code skills are way beyond what I could ever imagine to do myself. So already there's a thin line between who writes something and who's like doing everything else, curating, you know. So and together with him, Daniel Mahal, I've started to work with how you can use a simple form of algorithm and artificial intelligence in a way, very simple artificial intelligence to generate text. And that's why I have this weird picture in the background of Ibsen. Because this is generated with a tool called Google's Deep Dream. And that's a picture generated with a neural network. If you can see, there's thousands of small animal paintings in the painting. No, not painting, but picture, yeah, image. So that's because when I gave the Deep Dream generator the picture of Ibsen and told him recreate this, it took him for a monkey or something, and started using other animals to create the same picture. So with this, I've also started to work with how you can generate text. So this is completely written with it's written by an algorithm. I've given it input in form of every Ibsen play ever written. And the algorithm, in very simply put, it calculates the next probable character. It's called the character recurrent neural network, and
It sounds like Ibsen. It doesn't
yeah,
make
but
sense,
it's also like a kind of hyper language,
yes.
which sounds also, it could be in 1,000 years in the future or 1,000 years in the past. This is also an example of writing where you just copy paste and making a collage of things, which writers always have done. You know, Proust also used cut-up techniques, and beat poets like Burroughs. You know, literally cut up paper and put it together in other ways.
I think it was Lope de Vega that wrote something like 1,000 plays, and it just like reused stuff all the time. Just exchanging the order of the scenes, and there's a new play.
It's in many ways, this can and is a gimmick, but you can also use it to tell a story which says something deeper as well. And that's what I'm trying to do with this project.
You also wanted to perform something before
Yeah,
we
that's
we are...
the same neural network algorithm, but the input is my own words. I'm in this process of writing stream of consciousness texts, and right now I'm like at 100,000 words. So now the output is different than it will be when I reach 1 million. So I'm going to perform.
Yeah, great.
Sykla vi nedover gamle kongevei. Jeg kjent sommerlykt, hørt sykkeldekk-lyden. Himmelfar var gul. Det var bare et blikk. Det var bare et øyeblikk. Men det virket som alt gikk I sundstykker imens. Jeg leika med hvor man ikke hørte sykkellyden. Rett fram, til sida. Du vet den I øret når du snur på huet. I leve. Klys utfor glede. I fartsretninga. Vi sykla I Andeflo. Og det var som alle piksler I lydbilder ikke hadde en dritt med hverandre å gjøre. Alle tider I ett punkt. Når skilt og biler, blokker, årstider I går gikk meg forbi. I 1999. Når saltvannet brakk fjorden bak skogen og kirken, når vi sykler nedover gamle kongevei. Jeg blir ikke helt med å skjønke. Og du, jeg, ikke du hadde jeg, hvorfor jeg prøver. Sammen imot den parkerte bilen. Blomsterbutikken vi styrte rakt på. Når Bendik Knudsenøy sykla jeg satt bakpå. Uten å bry meg om at bakbremsen funka. Uten å bry meg om at bakbremsen funka. I det hele tatt. Lukka øya, kjørte sykkelvinden. I det hørte blei fortalt. Eller hvordan alt. Jeg tror den måte på, eller vi går, jeg må ta den, og bare en undertid som brorform, aten den knilom. En fråkelighet av varsler, en hele endesett ville ødelagt. Den annen lover, eller grust. Jeg rødt var, eller ikke I turens den I blin på, men du husker jeg, slik bare innes I frammen. Det vært meg. Jeg kunne dens hjert. Jeg lys seide og vinden gå hans ikke var I den mine litt over, men det en kjærlighet. Jeg stod utenfor solom, og hvem og andre som fanggjorde borgferdighet I 1999, I 1999, I 1999, sier Utenett, som jeg skal måtte fremdeles ha sett en av den min alders finnes tysker, og jeg vil frykten og fregjørelse romme I en grunnsperpet der. I ambulansen mistet jeg synet litt, var midlertidig blind, og jeg kjente drømmes, stemmen hennes. Ingen som han sex som en ennå ville gata verden søk at det skjære helmeter, det livet. Det livet. Det livet. Sykkelulykka. Eller jeg hopper I til, og jeg vil trærer bare ettertiden min seg med fra ava til å være imens. Har du glemt? I 1999, når vi sykler nedover gamle kongevei. Jeg sitter bak på bagasjebrett, asfalten sklir, som finnes som en eviger, menneskere, eventing. Vi skjer. Disen solskinnet nedover geiene hjertepet, for det får ut, for det får ut, for det får ut, det jeg har sett, det innes helt til det vender meg ut. Oslofjorden, kyststein I Horten. Oslofjorden, kyststein I Horten. Jeg stolte på det. 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 Jeg stolte på det.
setter vi på. So, what is improvised here and not?
The music is also improvised, and just how you cut it up can also be improvised. The voice is sampled, so you can't do anything outside of that. But I also work with how you can live sample things and manipulate them at once. But there aren't like this many apps and good solutions for that yet. So you have to make them. And that's really interesting how you can sample things right away. And then you can improvise in a whole new way, which I find really exciting.
It gives another take on language and sentences and meaning and metaphors and so on and so on.
Yes, and this weekend I'm doing this, which is this project in Larvik, which is the same project done as like a performative kind of public poetry thing, where I have these same quotations. But the interesting thing about this is like this has no meaning in itself. You create the meaning as you read it, whereas normal poetry has a meaning you have to uncode. This meaning you code yourself then and there. And this I have done in this like stencil art project where I have painted it in paint which uses nanotech, so it doesn't stick to water. So when you pour water over it, it's dry, where I have used stencil art.
That's cool.
So that's like done this, yesterday or the day before that.
Nice.
And that's an example of how you can like use another approach where the listener or the reader or the audience create the meaning themselves and like engage in the story or engage in the language, where they self-create the meaning. And that for me says that was a real epiphany, experiencing this, because it says something about meaning as well. That meaning is not only like out there, it's in here, you know? You create it. The world is the input, and then you read it, and the reading itself is an output.
It's nice. It's so much, but I think we should really start to open up for audience now, because we're getting at the end of this session, and I'm sure somebody has some questions or comments or something for Fredrik. Yes. Yes, Robin.
Yeah. Are you familiar with the work of Verdensteatret?
Familiar with the work of Verdensteatret?
Yeah, they work with something that I perceive as being very close to AI work, no, artificial intelligence, and they're using algorithms that are so complex that they're programmed to take on like their own life, like to start to decide, to choose factors and variables in the course when you just let them run for maybe 24 hours. Are you
I've read
using that?
about it, but I haven't like seen it. I've noticed it.
But are you? My question is: Are you interested? Are you using it or thinking along those lines, like to go in that direction where something takes over your work digitally, and like an artificial intelligence?
In an improvised setting, yes. In an improvised setting, yes. How you can talk to a machine, and if you could code that sort of algorithm into the Siri voice or something and engage with that. That's an interesting thing for an improvised actor, at least. Improvisational actor.
I guess it's a tradition from at least futurism in the 20s to kind of make the man and the machine somehow. Other? Yes?
Yes, you said something about vurdere,
About to evaluate?
evaluate art. And when you evaluate art or you discriminate art, you are close to discriminating people, and then you are getting closer to the fascism. And you said something about every art you can put in a vertical axis from the lower to the higher, and then you could turn the axis to be horizontal, and then view it as just a larger variety of voices. And I think, according to art criticism, where are you according to that? What are you thinking? Are you thinking that art criticism is not something that should exist at all, or
No.
no? So
You need that. You need that.
I would like to hear you elaborate a little bit around that.
Yes. You need it because it's just in the same way you need to be critical about your own work and not completely uncritical. You need a critic voice in society and in art, but you also need a balance. And for me, it's like a healthy approach to have this in mind. I often compare it to this like psychology Rorschach painting, where in one way you can view two faces, you know, and if you see it differently, you see a vase. Have you seen these pictures before? And it's just like that for me, art in its nature. You can view it as like two people talking about something, a critic voice, or you can just look at the urn in itself. So, no. You need the critic voice, just not only in the creative process, but also in the like total discourse in society. So that's not my. That's not how I mean that at all.
It's just that we need different ways of talking.
Yes,
about
and
the process
in
art.
the start of a creative process, for an artist, for me as an artist at least, I need to like be self-conscious about this dynamic.
Yeah.
If I write something with a back thought or like the super ego telling me what to do, it's like a really bad handicap in golf or whatever. It's like it's a really imprisoning thing.
I'm sure most people have critical voices in their head.
And that's a good thing.
Yeah.
We need that, but that cannot be
Sometimes
the
it
only
can
thing.
calm down
Yeah.
a bit. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, on that note, just a quick question. How do you stop your critical ego from taking over when you're in the creative process? Do you like have any good countermeasures?
No, not at all. That's a continuous battle within the entire process, and that's why writing something, even children's books, is a battle with oneself, and it's not like just fun. It's fun in one way, but then on another level, it's also hard work, and that's part of the reason why, for me at least.
And smoking weed doesn't help.
Hi, Fredrik. You are a painting poet, I think, and you are enriching us with your palettes of words and images. And I'm really enlightened by your work, and it's my first meeting with you. It's not my last. Thank you so much. I'm just very curious. Is there some kind of shyness in you cutting up pieces instead of just, I go from here to here, this is my story? Because you kind of give us a million stories when you cut up your words. So do you have a shyness that's hiding you from really telling us what you want?
Do you have a shyness?
Yeah, I definitely have a shyness, but standing on stage, I like tend to just find another energy there, which transcends the the humble guy from Drammen. But cutting up in that manner isn't like a strategy in that way. It's more of this cherry picking idea, just like relating to my own inner world in a way I can just take scenes and situations and words I have thought or other people have said to me, and reuse it in a new way.
Doesn't strike me like your aim is to create a huge epos. It's not like it's not the plot or the narrative, which is a carrying impulse. It's not the impulse of your art. Let's say.
Because life is not like that, you know. It's a ever-changing, new, regenerative thing. Every day is a new thing, and I am not the same person I was 10 years ago. And you are not the same person for me as you are the person for her, you know? We all read the world in our same way, and we reread it all the time.
Yes?
You talk about this difference between the contract between the audience from theater to spoken word, and I think that's very interesting. So I was wondering, what kind of acting training have you done for for training your spoken word?
Just standing on stage a lot. In 2006, I read on an internet page that the rap group Carpe Diem, they did over 250 gigs in 1 year. And that really resonated with me because I kind of understand that approach, not only to like do a lot in getting known in society, but primary to getting much scene experience. And today they are like one of the best live acts in the country, and I think that's why. So really early on I started like think I just have to perform a lot, and I have done many silly things and weird things across this part of the country, and from performing in the morning bus with the local radio, live broadcasting it, and 3 people sitting in the bus and like just kill me right now, and standing in city squares and just proclaiming, I have, if you can talk about like a comfort zone, I have like extended that quite a deal, and that has helped me just doing it a lot.
So the answer is totally autodidact.
Yeah.
As a performer.
Yeah.
But you have a bachelor in literature, and you also went to Westerdal's writing, right?
Mm.
So your education is connected to
yeah, and
text.
I'm really it's quite a shame that I had to quit the academic side of it and leaving the university, but I had to do it because if I had done a master's degree right now, I wouldn't have been here with you guys. So I really hope I can pick that up in a later stage, because I have been in a like creative school for 3 years called Westerdal School of Communication here in Norway, and that was really practical. And after that, I went 2 years and did a bachelor's degree in literature, which was really theoretical. But for me, that was like the best thing that could have happened in my professional life, because then I had this practical framework to put in, or like to use the theory. And everything I learned, which was really, really dry and uninteresting for everyone else, I really like, wow, tell me more about this, because I had this framework of practically working beforehand. So this, I think, also is like another practical 5 or 10 years of my life where I'm really planning on going into theory later on.
Some small last questions for Fredrik before we take a break. Yes?
Yeah, you're a house dramatist on Dramatikkens Hus now, is that right?
Yes.
Could you just tell a bit about how you work writing for theater, or how you work there?
Yes.
It's basically the same. Just beginning with like a thing or an idea of what the play should like center around, and thinking of it as like an investigation and an open, curious relationship to language in that way.
But is it different, because from what I know of your work, that's your voice and you speak from you. Is it any difference when writing drama?
I'm about to find out.
Yeah.
That's why the entire House Dramatists project is so exciting to me, because I have to find out these things.
Okay, thank you so much, Fredrik,
Thank
for
you.
sharing this with us.